It's Thursday, August 27. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom. The country recorded 72 new confirmed COVID-19 cases on Wednesday. This brings the total cases on record for the island to 1,804. Over the same period, recoveries increased by 6, bringing the total recoveries to 846. Marlon Samuels gives us the further breakdown.
Of the newly confirmed cases, 45 are females and 27 are males, with ages ranging from 5 years to 81 years. 7 cases are contacts of a confirmed case and 65 are currently under investigation. Of the new cases, 22 were recorded in Kingston and St. Andrew, 18 for St. Catherine, 11 were reported in Clarendon, 8 in St. Thomas, 4 in St. Anne, 3 in Manchester, 2 in Hanover, 2 in St. Mary, 1 in both St. Elizabeth and St. James respectively. 7 moderately ill patients and 4 critically ill patients are among the 867 active cases now under observation in Jamaica. 71 of the cases recorded on the island have returned to their countries of origin. Some 30,134 persons of interest are quarantined at home, while 16 remain in quarantine at government facilities. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Marlon Samuels.
In the meantime, the Health and Wellness Ministry says there are some 200 beds dedicated to the COVID-19 patients available in the public health system. Currently, 107 beds are occupied by patients receiving care. Only the University Hospital of the West Indies in St. Andrew and the Princess Margaret Hospital in St. Thomas have reached their capacity in the COVID-19 wards. The ministry says the necessary protocols and logistics are already in place if there is a need to transfer or admit patients to any facility in the public health system. Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, recently gave an update on the global effort to secure a COVID-19 vaccine. The Director General was speaking at the latest WHO press briefing.
I'm pleased to announce that as of today, 172 countries are now engaging with the COVAX Global Vaccines Facility, which has both the largest and most diverse COVID-19 vaccine portfolio in the world. At present, there are 9 vaccines that are part of this dynamic portfolio, which is constantly being reviewed and optimized to ensure access to the best possible range of products. Even now, discussions are ongoing with 4 more producers, and a further 9 vaccines are currently under evaluation for the longer term. The facility is the critical mechanism for joint procurement and pooling risk across multiple vaccines so that whatever vaccine is proven to be safe and effective, all countries within the facility will be able to access them. Most importantly, it is the mechanism to enable a globally coordinated rollout. This is in the interests of all countries, even those that have invested with individual manufacturers independently. We're working with vaccine manufacturers to provide all countries that join the effort timely and equitable access to all vaccines licensed and approved.
The Electoral Commission of Jamaica, ECJ, says it's 98% ready for the holding of special service general election on Monday, August 31, 2020, and a civilian general election on September 3, 2020. The public is being advised that the event will be guided by established protocols derived from the World Health Organization COVID-19 protocol, as well as outcome of meetings held with relevant ministries. 7,400 sanitization officers will be deployed to keep the voting process sanitized across the 2,200 polling stations. There will be mandatory thermometer checks, wearing of masks, continuous sanitization procedures, social distancing, and single use of voting pencils by electors. The political ombudsman says her office has received a number of complaints and reports on the posting of flags and other campaign paraphernalia in various communities. In a release, the ombudsman urged candidates and their supporters to refrain from mounting flags and other campaign paraphernalia on public and private property without the permission of the owners. The political ombudsman entreated candidates and supporters to refrain from defacing any structure, roadway, or installation for the purpose of displaying any political message or slogan, which would be a breach of tenet number 6 of the Agreement and Declaration on Political Conduct. The political ombudsman also received complaints on damage to billboard advertisements and campaign paraphernalia of political parties. She said candidates and their supporters are to refrain from destroying materials of the opposing party. These materials should only be removed by the owners of the property and/or with permission of the owners of the property. Concerns were raised recently about nomination day and other election campaign activities impacting the wave of new COVID-19 cases across the island. These events attracted crowds of persons who, in some cases, disregarded health protocols that are now in place to stem the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton responded to such concerns at a recent virtual press conference at Jamaica House.
In terms of the first question around the anticipated impact, if you will, of nomination day, the health authorities assess each situation as they occur or unfold, and we do have internal deliberations around activities and the likely impact. I don't have any specific information at this point in time, but the observations that would be captured under the epidemiology unit would account for some forecasting and, as a result, some preparation for that forecasting. We probably can give better particulars on that at another time.
The second of 3 national political debates will continue tonight. Jamaicans will learn more about the Jamaica Labour Party and People's National Party's take on the economic issues affecting the country. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke will square off with his opposition counterpart, Mark Golding. You can watch it live on the Pbcj at 9 p.m. and on our social media platforms at pbcjamaica. The Jamaican economy is projected to contract between 7 and 10% during the 2020-2021 fiscal year. That from Bank of Jamaica's Governor, Richard Biles.
The impact of COVID-19 on the Jamaican economy has been significant, and we have updated our view on its effect on the domestic economy. Our current projection is for the contraction in financial year 2020-21 to be greater than previously anticipated, more in a range of 7 to 10%. This is above our earlier forecast for a contraction in a range of 4 to 7%.
The governor spoke to the local contraction in light of the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the global economy.
This worsened outlook is largely associated with the resurgence of the virus in major trading partner countries, as well as updated assessments of the impact of the crisis on some sectors of the Jamaican economy. Between June of this year and March of next year, we expect weaker performances within the transport, storage and communication sector, the electricity and water sector, construction, and hotels and restaurant sectors. The revised outlook for transport primarily relates to lower than anticipated demand for public transportation, given lockdown measures and work from home arrangements. For electricity and water, the revision is associated with a reduction in demand arising from the general decline in business activity, while the decline in hotel and restaurants is consistent with a more pessimistic outlook for U.S. GDP growth.
He was speaking at the central bank's digital quarterly press briefing on Tuesday. The Jamaica Public Service Company, JPS, has been cleared of wrongdoing following investigations into reports of excessive billing linked to new smart meters. The Office of Utilities Regulation, OUR, says a report shows that the meters are performing satisfactorily. The OUR concluded from the evidence presented that the new meters installed between January 2017 and June last year are not necessarily the driver of excessive electricity consumption. The JPS says the integrity of the functionality of the smart meters are up to standard. The OUR says it will carry out further analysis of new meter installations by the JPS. The company's Office of Jamaica's Kingston office is closed following a confirmed positive COVID-19 test result received by a staff member. Public Relations Officer Kawayne Ferron says staff members who may have been exposed have been advised to quarantine for 14 days. The agency's Montego Bay office will remain open. However, customers will experience delays in obtaining services there since processing of documents is done at the Kingston office. In the meantime, customers are encouraged to utilize the agency's online registration platform to register their businesses and companies. The Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities is working with Tax Administration Jamaica, TAJ, to assist members of the disabled community to acquire their tax registration number. Executive Director Dr. Christine Hendricks says the objective is to enable persons with disabilities to access the one-off grant of $10,000 that's available under the government's COVID Allocation of Resources for Employees program. A sum of $40 million has been allocated to the Ministry of Labour and Social Security to provide support to the community of persons living with disabilities to help cushion the economic impact of the novel coronavirus pandemic and put them in a better position to recover. In the meantime, the government says the Disabilities Act provides avenues through which persons with disabilities can participate more fully in all aspects of mainstream society, including exploring facilities for greater access to technology. Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade Minister Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith gave this assurance at a recent meeting at the Jamaica Labour Party's headquarters in Kingston.
Persons living with disabilities who have continued to benefit from economic grants, economic support, as well as assisted aid grants and empowerment training. We will expand the training available not only to persons with disabilities, but to caregivers, so that we have a greater pool of quality care and assistance. We will also be expanding the pool of economic empowerment programs. We will be implementing the Disabilities Act, creating the Jamaica Council of Persons with Disabilities as its own statutory agency, empowered to deliver, working with the National Gender Commission on the new program for enhancing employment of persons with disabilities.
For the third consecutive week, there has been an increase in gas prices. Gabriel Thompson gives us the details in this business report.
According to the latest ex-refinery costs from Petrojam, motorists should see an increase at the pumps in the prices of gasoline and diesel effective Thursday, August 27. 87 and 90 octane gasoline will be sold for $119.94 and $122.77 per liter, respectively up by $1.54 each. Following an increase of 5 cents, automotive diesel fuel will be sold for $117.30 per liter, while ultra-low sulfur diesel is up by 32 cents and will be sold for $119.55 per liter. Kerosene saw a price increase of 93 cents and will be sold for $94.12 per liter. Propane liquid petroleum will be sold for $50.01 per liter, up by 12 cents. And butane liquid petroleum will be sold for $52.69 per liter after an increase of 91 cents. Marketing companies and retailers will add their respective markup to these prices. In Wednesday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 2,926 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 80 stocks, of which 37 advanced, 29 declined, and 14 traded firm. The junior market index advanced by 26 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica, AMG Packaging and Paper Company, and Blue Par Group Limited. Stocks declined for Access Financial Services, Barita Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica. Trading firm were Kirby and Cream Epley Limited 8.25% and Honeybun Limited. Trans Jamaican Highway Limited was the volume leader with over 11 million units, followed by Sagicor Real Estate X Fund Limited with over 5.3 million units, and QWI Investments Limited with just over 1.5 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Wednesday, August 26, ended trading at $150.41. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $114.28. The pound sterling traded for $199.47, and the euro ended trading at $181.05. Oil prices were broadly stable on Thursday as a massive hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico made landfall in the heart of the U.S. oil industry, forcing oil rigs and refineries to shut down. Brent crude futures rose 6 cents to $45.70 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell 8 cents to $43.31 a barrel. That's it for the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
This week on Culinary Trails, we take a look at Quickplate online delivery services. With stay-at-home orders now in effect owing to a surge in COVID-19 cases, the company has been instrumental in keeping the nation fed and safe during this pandemic. In this episode of Culinary Trails, we're speaking with the managing director of Quickplate's, Monique Powell. She says the business got started out of a personal need.
At the time, I was working at another company. I would get home late from work, often have no interest in cooking. But at that time when we started, if you wanted to order food for delivery, we're more or less limited to pizza, you know. So I started to think that there's probably a business idea here, you know. What if I could create a reliable way of ordering from a wide variety of restaurants and having it delivered in such a way that would allow you to track the rider, track the driver, know exactly what's going on with the order. And that's essentially what we did with Quickplate.
So it's kind of like Uber Foods.
Some people refer to it as the Uber Eats of Jamaica, but it is pretty similar in terms of how it works.
What would the experience be like for someone who has never been on the website? Give us a quick walkthrough.
We've designed it in such a way to be as user-friendly as possible and as straightforward as possible. So when somebody goes to myquickplate.com, the first thing they'll see at the top is a bar that they would be required to type their delivery address into. When they type that address in and click on Find Restaurants, we'll show them all the restaurants that are available in their zone. From there, they can pick the restaurant, select the items that they want to order, check out, pay using their credit card or Visa debit, and once the order comes over to us, they start getting email and SMS notifications as to when the driver arrives at the restaurant, when he or she leaves the restaurant, etc.
How many companies are on Quickplate's website so far?
So right now we have around 70 restaurants on board. And we actually recently launched a sister arm to it called Quickcart, which does supermarkets, pharmacies, etc. And that also has a few merchants on it as well.
How many clients did you have prior to COVID-19?
Since the start of COVID until now, we've probably onboarded about 15 new restaurants and merchants.
Is the business equipped and ready to deal with the increase in clients that you are providing the services to?
We're already poised to scale. So having to deal with a sudden uptake wasn't difficult for us. It just meant that we had to basically execute on the plans that we already had in place for what we would do if there were to be a sharp spike or a sharp increase in demand and orders, that sort of thing.
In regional news, the Ministry of Health in Trinidad and Tobago has updated the guidelines for the admission and discharge of COVID-19 patients. The change comes as the country seeks to adopt guidelines set by the World Health Organization. Ian Wason has more in this report.
In the past, a COVID-19 patient was required to be symptom-free for 14 days before being discharged from the health system. But the requirement set by the World Health Organization for countries affected by community spread has now been just 3 days. During Wednesday's Ministry of Health media briefing, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Roshan Parasram announced the change for patients who are displaying symptoms.
So the first category for symptomatic persons, if you spend 10 days from the date of onset of your symptoms, 3 days plus 3 days with no symptoms at all, we will discharge you to your home, giving you a quarantine order to stay for further 7 days at your home without a diagnostic test being done.
The measures for asymptomatic patients are slightly different.
In terms of asymptomatic persons who had no symptoms at all, those persons will now be asked. The criteria is very similar, but your 10-day period will start at the point that you had a positive test, rather than at the point that you began to have symptoms.
With a change in how things were previously handled, it will now effectively reduce the population of COVID-19 positive patients at the health facilities, which have crossed 1,100 people. While this country's bed capacity now stands at 60%, TTT News has been reliably informed that some 400 persons are expected to be discharged on Wednesday. And when it comes to admitting COVID-19 positive patients to health facilities, the Ministry of Health said it will reserve bed space for moderate and severe patients and will have patients who exhibit mild symptoms to self-quarantine at home. Those people will be monitored by healthcare professionals.
If it has worsened, if it is better, if it has stayed the same, they will also ask you about your household, if the persons in your household have any signs of symptoms of disease. If they do, we can send someone out and have those persons swabbed to see if they're positive or negative as well.
The ministry is hopeful members of the public exercise responsibility and self-quarantine at home while wearing masks and maintaining social distances from family members. Ian Wason, TTT News.
The office of the mayor in Castries, St. Lucia, is not backing down in its quest to regularize vending in the city. While the city council's perceived abrasive style has irked some workers, the municipality maintains it's about results and enforcing the law. The recent spat with vendors as well as the management of the capital were among the items on the agenda at a press conference this week.
In response to the wave of complaints and high-profile incidents, the mayor's office held a press conference on Tuesday. Mayor Peterson Francis is standing by his approach in dealing with vendor Adela James, who the council has hauled before the court over refusal to relocate amid an escalating feud over a coveted spot along Coral and Meekwood Street.
If you see where she's parking, number one, we can't clean the drains because she's there from 5 o'clock in the morning. Number two, she has a piece of plywood over the drain. Okay? Number three, she has a bar. So people have, there's a long stool where you find that people sit there. Now she has a tent, which you have to pass under because you are now invading her privacy. She has a tent. You have to pass underneath the tent. Okay? You have to be careful that the people that sits there drinking, that you must be extra careful because of what you see if you want to pass or who you touch, because you'll get yourself in trouble. Now, one of my main concerns, because she was in that little thing, is that she has, as I say, the tent, come down Meekwood Street and go into to Coral Street. Just turn, and you know how St. Lucians drive, very careful. We are the most careful people drivers in the world. Then you have school, dismiss or whatever. And when one of these drivers turned that, you cannot see. And as soon as you turn, you knock a child. Then Oh, we have how many press here now? We'll have double the press here.
Will the parking space then be turned to private parking to accommodate the Consumer Affairs Division? James insists that it is the main reason behind efforts to relocate her.
If there is a restriction, if they have no parking, if there is something, then she have to obey the law. But the CCC has nothing to do with what will go there or what plans they have for there. But all what we are seeing where she is right now, it's not a vending area.
James is not the only street merchant at odds with the council. Outraged vendor Karen Louis had implored the city police to release a young man who operates a trolley on her behalf about the city circuit. He was taken into custody last week. City Police Sergeant was grilled on the matter by the press.
I want to take this opportunity to let you all know that the statements that were made were misleading by the vendor. The actual fact is, Personally, I was on duty the morning of the incident. I spoke to the vendor with the vendor's coordinator. We asked him to remove. He did not remove. We went on our merry way. I placed a report in the station diary. The officer on the 2 to 10 shift proceeded with instructions. He went through the diary. He saw where the guy has been cautioned on numerous occasions. He went to him. He spoke to him. When he spoke to the guy threatened him. So, as a matter of being threatened, the officer told him he's placing him under arrest for the offense of threatening words. But the location where he was vending was a prohibited area. So, when you arrest somebody for an offense and the person has belongings, you don't just arrest the person, you go with whatever he has.
The outspoken vendor was disappointed with the city's handling of the incident. However, Campton says the focus should be on the young man and not the irate vendor.
The Boulevard, Bridge Street, all these areas are prohibited areas. And the point remains the same. She is not part of that. She wasn't the one who was arrested. She has no part to play in that.
It's her goods?
Yeah, it's her goods, but she's the one. She has no part. It's a guy I know. I don't know her. Yeah. Okay.
So just for clarification, can you just explain to us why these Bridge Street and the Boulevard are no vending zones?
It's in the bylaws. It's highlighted in the bylaws. These are the areas that are prone to no vending zones.
The mayor was also asked about the council's aggressive style. He appeared unperturbed, pointing to the results.
But there were concerns that you have been too abrasive with the people. Would you apologize for that? Would you
apologize for what?
Would you say that? Would you agree that you have been abrasive in certain situations?
No, but you know why the things are happening? Because I'm abrasive.
The city police has pledged to continue its crackdown on improper vending practices within the city. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
In one community in St. Kitts, it's been suffering from water woes for decades. Now, one government official is promising a change. More from SKN Newsline.
The community of Keon has been suffering from inconsistent water supply. Most residents have running water throughout the day, but as the evening approaches, the water supply stops, only to return the following morning. It has been a problem that transcends government administrations, but according to Minister of Public Infrastructure and Deputy Prime Minister Sean Richards, his ministry is looking into efforts to solve this problem. In the most recent press conference of the Prime Minister, Mr. Richards said the ministry is aware of the concerns of residents of Keon and posited a number of options to solve the problem.
It is connected to the cistern in Beaufords. It has the ability to feed water to Keon. However, we have had concerns with Shadwell 2. Shadwell 2, when it was developed, had a number of different tests done on the quality of the water. The initial test showed that the quality of the water isn't such that it should be put into production for persons to consume. However, we are in the process of retesting. Recently, a test was done by the Bureau of Standards here in St. Kitts. Those results looked very good, and the director there actually said that the quality looks like that of bottled water, which we would use to drink. However, out of an abundance of caution, a decision has been taken to test the water at other labs outside of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Minister Richards said he reached out to the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARFA, which also has a lab in St. Lucia, to test the water as well.
Once we are satisfied with the results, then I think a decision can be taken to put Shadwell 2 into production, thereby bringing some temporary relief to the people of Keyon. If the results are not looking good, then it means that relative to Shadwell 2, we have to put a reverse osmosis system in place in order to purify the water coming from that particular well. And there's an alternative which has also been given to the ministry in terms of ensuring that the water is safe for consumption.
Meanwhile, the minister said they have reached out to Bead, the company that has done work in the Federation in relation to exploring wells and water supply. The challenge is there are personnel overseas that would need to be on island to execute the project, but who refuse to be quarantined as is required for persons entering St. Kitts and Nevis.
One company, Bead, said that when they were here, and that is the company which would have developed Shadwell 2, that they identified the possibility of a well in Keyon. If that is indeed the case, it means that it should not take too long of a period if they are to come in and do the well. Again, the sticking point is that of quarantine. We have a particular policy relative to quarantine, and the government has no intention of bending on that policy. However, we are actively addressing the situation in Keyon. I think it was Monday morning or Friday morning, actually, I spoke to one of the persons for Bead on island, Ralston Isaac. He indicated to me that once the government is willing to enter into a contract with Bead to do the exploration in Keyon, he will say to his partners that they must be prepared to come in, do the quarantine, and start the exploration as soon as possible.
Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
In sports, we put the spotlight on cricket. The Jamaica Tallows went down by 36 runs to Barbados Tridents in their latest game in the Caribbean Premier League T20 competition this week. The Tallows have now won 2 and lost 3 of their matches in the tournament so far. The Jamaican franchise faces St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots on Saturday. And that's it for our news package. Pleasant viewing.